into the episode. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video with your friends, anyone that you think might be interested. It all helps with the algorithms. And for those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review or any review. That also helps get the podcast out to more people on those audio platforms. Let's get into the special segment of the week. There's been quite a lot going on outside of United, outside of Arsenal, in this international break. We'll start off with a big controversy that kind of kicked off the beginning of the international break, and that was the controversy around David Coote. To set the scene, if you've been living under a rock over the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's a Premier League referee. He had a series of unfortunate videos leak via the Sun, Daily Mail, and other British newspapers. The first two showing him speaking into the camera with another one of his mates or boyfriend or whatever. I don't know quite their relationship, where he basically says all Liverpool are scum, or we don't like them, etc. And Jurgen Klopp is a German C word. Then he proceeds to take another video. He's in another recorded video where he's saying, please do not share this video with anyone. It cannot get out, etc. He was suspended almost immediately after that. And then midway through the international break, another video comes out allegedly of David Coote sniffing a white substance off the table, recording himself. And apparently this was taken just after the Euro 2024 quarterfinal between Germany and Spain, of which he was an assistant VAR and made a very dubious penalty call, not giving a penalty to Germany when Cucurella obviously gave away a penalty. So, yeah, UEFA are now investigating him as well. There's been this whole discourse about whether or not he should be fired and lose his job, whether or not we should give him a second chance and not condemn him. What do you think, John, first of all, before I share my thoughts and opinions on this? Do you think he should lose his job, or do you think the suspension and then bringing him back in slowly is the right approach?
I think he should lose his job and never be allowed to referee again. I think it's pretty simple. If you do anything else in sport where you deliberately affect the result of a game in essentially a negative way, an unfair way, you get banned for a long time. And I'm going to give you an example. Think about all the furore around betting and gambling and the amount of bans that have been given out to players for that reason, right? Because and in some cases, or in most cases, they're not betting against themselves. They're betting literally on, random other results in the league, and they get, a year ban, or they get 9 months ban, and they get massive fines and whatever else, right? It's mental, right? They're affecting the outcome of a game. Then you think about the fact that he is supposed to be enforcing games, and he is supposed to be kind of the purveyor of justice, if you think about it, right? He's the judge, the jury, and the executioner in many senses of the word when it comes to football and individual football matches. If there's any inkling that he might have a bias against a country or a team, that man can never touch the pitch again. I'm sorry, right? It's, in my opinion, it entirely calls into question the integrity of him and the institution that he represents. So, he says the German C word, and then we pull it up that he's doing cocaine and making decisions that go against Germany, allegedly. And he's making decisions against Germany, right? Like, I don't care if it's true or not that he's anti-German or biased this or biased that. That's enough for him to lose his job. I'm sorry to say it, right? So, I honestly think we should have a harsher stance on a lot of these things. And I don't think you can ever recover from this, right? Like, can you imagine all the football fans that are going to be chanting at him if he ever came back? They're going to basically have to handle him with kid gloves for the rest of his career. He'll never be allowed to referee a Liverpool match ever again, even if he does come back, right? He'll never be allowed to get anywhere near a match that may affect Liverpool massively. Let's say Liverpool are in a title race with Man City. They're not going to want to put him on Man City games either. So what's the point? You're just going to have to like manage around him. And I'm sorry, he's not God's gift to refereeing for you to do that, right? Go and find someone else. You've got plenty of other grassroots referees. It's very clear that your standard or expectations for referees is very low anyway. You can literally pick someone off the street, give them 2 weeks of training, and they're probably as good as some of the referees you put out today. So, no, I understand. Should a person lose their career for it? That's a totally fine argument to make if they've, been caught swearing, or if they get caught speeding or something like that. Like, fine, go ahead. But if they do something serious like this, or they're caught drunk driving, or they're caught doing something mental like abusing drugs or showing bias against or towards a team, I'm sorry, you're out. Can you imagine if it was the other way around, right? Like if they found a player on tape saying that, he's intentionally affected games, or he hates whatever, and he's caught doing substances, the outrage would be massive. So no, don't ever let him referee again. He should lose his job, go and do something else. The game's the game, right? This is £1 billion plus league. This ain't Sunday league. This ain't Bible study. We don't have to give everyone a second chance. I'm sorry. So off you go, Coote, never to be seen again in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I think not for coming to a conclusion, or not when it comes to coming to a conclusion with, what should happen to him and his career in the Premier League. I agree. I think after everything in totality, he cannot referee again in this country. Maybe he can go and referee again in Qatar or somewhere else, and restart his career if that's something that he's determined to do with the rest of his life. But I think in the Premier League in England, there's no way he can continue. I think if you break things down in isolation, I think the first few videos are definitely suspension worthy. They are definitely investigation worthy to understand what is the context behind them. And he should definitely get, the maximum punishment within the jurisdiction of his role, because of the severity of what you just said. The fact that bias and now, affecting outcomes of games comes into question every single time he could play or could officiate a Liverpool game, and not only a Liverpool game, but rivals of Liverpool, if they were coming, in a title charge against Liverpool, or anything where Liverpool's stakes are raised by another team, he would automatically become a massive question mark, and rule himself out basically of being anyway involved with those games. So it's super, super serious. I think the third video, which we have to be careful around the allegedly and all that kind of stuff, where he's sniffing some white powder or something like that, if that is found to be an illegal substance, he should face the same punishment any of the rest of us would get if we were found to have recorded ourselves taking an illegal substance or breaking any law, which would generally be we would lose our job, right? If you or I were to do that, and our company was to find out, I'm pretty sure we would lose our job, no questions asked. It wouldn't be a case of disciplinary this or disciplinary that, or suspension this or suspension that. We would lose our jobs. Generally, that is the stakes we're all playing with in all of our jobs. And I don't think a referee should be held to a different standard or be given any sort of more of a bly than the rest of us. So I think when you combine all this stuff together, I can't see a world where he's able to continue refereeing in the Premier League and refereeing in this country. I think the only thing I will say is David Coote's behaviour is very much representative of a lot of people in the UK. I'll be honest with you. We'll be lying if we said we didn't know acquaintances or have heard stories about people doing some of the things David Coote has done. So I don't think some of the pile-on that's I've seen happen to him is that great. I think a lot of people probably need to look in the mirror if they're like going absolutely in on him for doing any one of those things, because I'm sure a lot of them have done it themselves. But I do think if you look at it with the cold light of day in terms of his career, there's no coming back. There's no coming back from doing all these things and having evidence and proof. It's one thing if you've done those things and you're not recording it, not sharing it with people, and it's his word against our word. Maybe he could weasel his way out of it. Maybe he could lie his way out of it. Maybe he could get around it because there's no evidence or proof. But there is proof and there is evidence, and there's no coming back. So I think I hope this is resolved and dealt with swiftly. I don't understand why the PGMOL will drag this out longer. I can't see how complicated this investigation could be, but let's see how it goes. But I think I agree with you overall. I think there's no coming back from it, and we've got to try and not make the PGMOL and the state of refereeing all about David Coote. This is just a crazy incident, set of incidents that have come about.
And that's why the PGMOL has to take swift and, in my opinion, decisive action, right? They can't have people banging on about it. And if they bring Coote back, it will just show me that it's not about the quality of their refereeing. It's not about their customer in the fans, in the clubs, in the Premier League. It's about them, and they're protecting their own. And we've already seen enough of that from the referees. We've already heard, can't remember who it was, saying he didn't want to correct his mate. That's not how it should be, right? It's the same complaint we have a lot about a lot of government organisations as well, right? Don't protect your own. Hold yourself to the same quality standards that your customer holds you to, right? In the case of the police, it's us, the customer, as ordinary citizens of the world or of the country. Same goes for PGMOL. So, I get the whole point about he's not the only person to do those things. But I also think, just because many people do those things doesn't necessarily mean that it should be widely accepted, right? And if it was, then it would be legally okay to do. And I think everybody else that does those things should understand, and probably does understand, that what they're doing could get them in trouble if they're found to do it. So they do it discreetly. They do it in ways that don't get recorded and put on the internet, especially if you're in a very high profile job. Like if you're working in an industry where, you're not a celebrity, you're not going to be recorded. And even if you were, it's not going to be put onto social media, then fine. But if you're in a very high profile industry where you're paid in line with, the high profile nature of your job, it's assumed that you are either going to be extremely discreet about any things that you may be doing that may be considered to be illegal or whatever else. But also you understand that if you get caught doing any of those things, you are done for, right? It's not your God-given right to be a referee, unfortunately, right? And if I was caught on camera saying negative or trade secret type things about my company, they would fire me. It would not be a suspension. I would be fired. If I was found to be doing something illegal that again brought my company into disrepute, I would be fired. And I don't work in a high profile industry. I can tell you that much for free. So David Coote would be held to that standard or higher, right? So from my point of view, there's no coming back from that. And if I see him come back from it, I will have lost faith even more in the PGMOL. And that's right now, honestly, there's not a lot of faith left. So I might get into the negatives.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are in that state at the moment, and there's a wider question that we can get into in another pod about the general state of the PGMOL, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities throughout the season to